My fiance and I are getting married in September. My fiance's sister just found out her husband and father of their 3 kids was cheating on her for the past 2 years, and he left the house and they're getting a divorce. My sister-in-law is very distraught by this, of course, since she's been with him since they were 19. They're 34 now. Since they're getting a divorce, now everyone from my fiance's side of the family demands that we cancel our wedding to show solidarity and support my sister-in-law. They also believe it would be improper to celebrate while sister-in-law is getting divorced and left alone with 3 kids. My sister-in-law also demands it and says there's no ifs and buts, and the wedding is getting canceled and it's the respectful thing to do. While I truly feel for her and her situation, I don't understand what our wedding has to do with it, and how canceling it will help her feel better. I understand being at a wedding is going to feel bittersweet, but her divorce and our wedding are 2 separate occasions, and I don't feel like we should cancel anything. My fiancé agrees on everything, and was the first one to say how it's completely unreasonable to cancel our wedding. My sister-in-law and my fiancé's parents think we are being extremely selfish and inconsiderate. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole? What a weird family. Let me guess. Sister-in-law is the golden child. I'm guessing if you told her to postpone her divorce because you planned your wedding first, and it would be inappropriate for her to bring down your wedding celebration with her divorce proceedings. She'd tell you to get stuffed. So don't waste time worrying about their unreasonable expectations. When it comes down to it, your sister-in-law is invited, but not obligated to come. Just tell her if she can't handle being there, she is welcome to sit this one out with no hard feelings. But there will be no more talk of canceling Entertained because it's not happening, and further bothering either of you about it should result in just cutting off from them any communication about the wedding until invites are sent out. If invites have already been sent out and sister-in-law and fam is talking about this, I just limit any further engagement with them whatsoever, unless they're willing to behave rationally. My parents are divorced. Together they have me, 16 female, and my sister, 15 female. Mom has a longtime boyfriend who lives in another state with his kids. Once a year, we all get together at my grandparents' beach house. Dad is remarried, has 3 stepkids with his wife who are all similar ages to me and my sister, and he has our 2 little brothers with stepmom. I like my stepmom. I love my little brothers. I hate my step-siblings. They are a-holes, for so many reasons. They had such a nasty attitude toward me and my sister when Dad and stepmom first moved in together. They had their dad crash my 13th birthday party to start crap with my stepmom. And we found out after they had waited a few days to tell their dad something so he would storm right over during the party. They used to brag about the crap their dad bought them, but once they learned about the beach house, they would constantly say they wanted to come and demanded that my dad ask my mom to let them vacation there. They also treated my sister like crap over her anxiety. They have mocked her so many times. They make me so angry. In the past year, their dad died, and our youngest brother was diagnosed with cancer, and they also discovered his heart. He was born with a heart problem, was struggling more than it had been for a while. My step-siblings have a huge change in lifestyle and get way less now, and my dad and stepmom are struggling. They are flying out for some new cancer treatment for my brother in June, and they'll be gone for a couple of months. Dad asked Mom if she could take my step-siblings on her vacation with us this year to give them something to look forward to. She told him it wouldn't be a good idea given the trouble between us. So my dad sat me down and started with, "You'd be okay with your step-siblings getting to have some fun after all they've been through?" And I said I wouldn't be okay with it. I told him that I didn't want them there, and that I honestly don't want them at his house either. But I love him enough to tolerate the fact they exist. He told me that he was really disappointed and asked how I could truly hate my family, who I have grown up with. I pointed out all the stuff they have said and done. I told him that their dad dying doesn't make them better people. He told me he expected more compassion from me, and I can see he's mad and sad. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Tell your dad you're showing them as much compassion as they have shown you, and if he's disappointed in you, he must be disappointed in them as well for how they've treated you and your sister, his children, for years. And tell him that you're the one who is disappointed in him for allowing the A all these years. Not the a-hole. Your parents are divorced. Your mother has no obligations to them, only to you. She needs to keep you and your sister safe. Your mother is not step daycare. Tell your dad that he is failing you and your sister by not protecting her and you, and that he is favoring step-siblings and new kids over you guys, and that you will not be forced to stretch out his neglect to you and your sister's safe place. Say that maybe if he had protected you and had addressed step-siblings' misbehavior, he would not have a problem now. My grandmother and I have become really close in the past years, and she has started to confide in me as a friend. She told me she suspected my grandfather of having an affair for years, but she was scared to say anything about it because if it was true, what is she going to do? I never pushed her or told her to leave him because I knew that she just wanted to vent and do it without judgment. Then, last year around March, she just came to my house, told me that she was leaving him and for me not to ask her why. I just let her in and got her comfortable. I assumed they'd eventually work things out, but days went by, then weeks, and then months. After 3 months or so, my father was fuming and believed I broke up his parents. He also insisted I knew why they had broken up and just wasn't sharing it to be difficult. At the time, I really didn't know. During that entire time, my grandfather never came to check on her or even ask about her, and she never said a word. Then one day, my cousin saw our grandfather with another woman. He introduced her as his girlfriend to him. My uncle and father both came to my house and started talking about how all this had gone too far. Then time passed and everyone seemed to accept that it was really over. The process of divorce was started as my grandfather wanted to marry his girlfriend, the woman he was cheating with for the past 22 years. My grandmother was distraught this entire time. I had never seen my grandmother this heartbroken and depressed in my life. Then, around September, my grandfather was dumped by his fiancée. She broke things off because he was difficult to live with, and in her exact words, useless. He had assumed she would take over all the things my grandmother did for him. The affair and their dreams didn't live up to the reality of a genuine relationship. They did get back together one more time, but they broke things off again within a month. During this time period, my grandmother was doing well at our house. She was finally doing better, and I had fully moved her into the house. The spare room was now her room. I had also introduced her to Tom, fake name. Tom was the grandfather of an acquaintance of mine, a lovely guy, and they got along so great. So great, in fact, that they are now dating and are planning on getting married this July if the divorce gets finalized in time. My grandfather, on the other hand, is doing terribly. He is depressed, disheveled, declining in health, and lonely as hell. He hates the dating world because, apparently, very few ladies are willing to date him, and the 2 ladies that did both broke up with him after a few dates. Now, my father and uncle want me to basically kick my grandmother and Tom out. My grandmother and Tom don't have much money. They certainly couldn't afford to live by themselves and pay for all their necessities. Them living with me for free allows them to be together, while still being able to live a decent life with the little savings they do have, and I love having them around. My grandmother would have more money if my dad, uncle, and grandfather weren't screwing her over financially. At this point, I don't know how to deal with the men in my family and protect my grandmother from them. They want her to fail so desperately, and it ducking hurts to see how cruel they are being. Any advice is welcome. Info. She has a great lawyer, but my grandfather is being really sneaky. I mean, he has years of experience both in his personal life and in business. So yeah, she'll probably get a bit of money, a small pension, and possibly some assets, but it likely won't be what she deserves, let alone half of what she actually deserves. Also, I wish I knew sooner because I would have helped sooner. But it took years for my grandmother and I to go from grandchild and grandparent to friends who can confide in each other. So I never really knew how unhappy my grandmother was and how emotionally my grandfather was. If you asked me 10 years ago, I would have told you my grandparents have the kind of marriage I would want. But growing up, becoming an adult, showed me how desperate my grandmother's situation was. I also started educating myself, and I learned that this isn't unusual at all. That many elderly women are stuck in A relationships, as there are young women in A relationships. It's just elderly women are less likely to leave than a woman in her prime years. I mean, if my grandmother grew up in a time where she couldn't have her own bank account, needed her father or husband's permission to own a home or get credit, so she never really had a chance. She grew up poor, was married by 18, and a mother by 19. Had husband that bossed her around, and it was ducking normal and expected. She never had true control of her life. How dare your father blame you? I mean, seriously, why isn't he blaming your grandfather for being a crappy husband? Your grandmother deserves happiness, and I'm glad she has your support. You are an amazing grandchild. Stay strong for your grandmother, and be firm that you will continue to support her. Warn your father, uncle, and grandfather that your choices about who you let live in your house and who you financially support are no longer up for discussion. My mom passed when I was 4. I have 2 older brothers who were 6 and 7 when she passed. Our dad remarried just after my 9th birthday and had 2 children with his second wife. My brothers and I are 28, 30, and 31 now, and my half-sisters recently turned 15. My brothers and I work with our mom's parents. She set up a restaurant with them before she had us, and our grandparents have told us we'll be the owners eventually. As it is, we make decisions like owners. My half-sister is obsessed with being a chef. She watches all the cooking shows and wants to be famous. Recently, she has started asking if she can work at the restaurant and start to get to know the family business. She said she'd love to take over as head chef one day, and her mom could be head waitress. My brothers told her she was getting way too carried away, but she got all excited. She ended up talking to our dad about working for us. He said he was okay with it as long as we were. We're not. What it comes down to is this is a business our mom started with her parents for us to take over someday, for our family. And none of us believe she would want our dad's second wife or our half-siblings, who are nothing to her, working there and taking such a huge place in it. We know our grandparents aren't comfortable with it either. I'm the most gentle out of us three, so I told her that she couldn't work for us. I encouraged her to find somewhere else to work instead. She asked me why, and I told her it was a decision made by those of us who ran the business. She asked me how it could be a family business if we don't allow family to work there, then said how her mom should have been asked a long time ago. I told her that wouldn't make sense since her mom isn't related to my grandparents, the owners, and that ultimately it's my mom's legacy for her children and how we're trying to honor that. She said it was dumb and duck how my mom would feel when she can't even speak about it. My dad and his wife are so pissed we turned her down. They said she is our family and that should be what matters. It also brought some bitterness up about Dad's wife not being offered a place at the restaurant years ago. Seems there's some weirdness because Dad had worked alongside Mom and my grandparents for a while when they were first married. Am I the a-hole? Edited to add. A lot of it revolves around money and legalities. When my dad got remarried, his wife approached my grandparents and told them she wanted to adopt me and my brothers, and how she and my dad wanted her to be the one to take control of any money that was meant to go to us, including savings my mom left my grandparents in control of. She told them she was going to be our mom now, and she would be taking over finances for the family, that she needed to know everything we had and wanted access to it. When my brothers and I said no to being adopted, she and Dad approached my grandparents about having a conversation with us, and brought up the fact that they had not done any of the other stuff asked. She told them she was not comfortable with our photo being in the restaurant, and said they needed to take it down. It was a photo of us with our mom and grandparents, because they were the parents now. The tone was set from there, and I suspect they must have asked to work in the business with the clear resentment they have that they weren't employed there a long time ago. Can't confirm it, but it was clearly expected my grandparents would ask Dad and his wife to work there. Not the a-hole. She's family, but not to your grandparents on your mom's side. That makes sense. Entitled as duck, the mom and daughter. Neither one of them deserve to work there, especially after disregarding and disrespecting your late mom's feelings and legacy. I'd ban them from the place for life. I can somewhat see why your half-sister is upset, but also not because the entitlement of her, and more so, her mom is clearly strong. OP. The fact that your maternal grandparents aren't comfortable could be significant on a number of levels. I may be grasping at straws here, but I'm willing to bet that your stepmom has tried to throw her weight around with the family business before now. It sounds like your dad has no ownership of and little involvement since your mom passed, so he can fudge right off with telling you, your brothers, and his late wife's parents what to do with your restaurant, her legacy. Stepmom and half-sister don't want to simply work at the restaurant. It sounds like they want to run the show. The sis is a teenager. Where do you think she gets all the aggro and defensiveness about her mom not being involved years ago? It's likely been groomed into her by the mom. Not the a-hole. Stick with your instincts and dodge these two bullets and honor your mom's wishes.